And I thought about that meeting. And I sat up in bed because I realized she was going to fire me. It is really incredible how many of us will feel like a disappointment at some point or another in our jobs. While I was still kind of ramping up and getting used to all of the new tasks of my job, I felt like this all the time. One day, maybe about a year into my job, I got an invitation on my calendar to meet for a one-on-one with the VP of engineering of our company. I had talked to her my first week on the job because she does a little bit of an onboarding meet and greet with everybody, but not since then. So I was kind of confused what this was all about, but then got distracted with something that I was working on and forgot about it. Or at least I forgot about it until later that night. And I was laying in bed, recapping all of the things that had happened throughout the day, and I thought about that meeting. And I sat up in bed because I realized she was going to fire me. There's no other explanation, I was not going through the tickets as fast as some of my coworkers, and I didn't have the 5 years of background knowledge of the company that other people on my team had because they'd worked in other departments before they joined my team. And I couldn't even keep all the features straight like one of my other coworkers. So what was it I was even bringing to the table if I didn't have these things? I was totally getting fired. I didn't sleep much the rest of that night. Fast forward a couple of weeks, I was getting ready to go into the meeting and talked to one of the girls that was on my team and found out, oh, she had one of those meetings too. She wasn't firing me, she was building rapport on the team. My overactive brain got the better of me and built up this whole big story that really didn't have any evidence to back it up. Our brains are incredible and they are complicated. They go to great lengths to try to protect us, but the way that they know how to protect us a lot of times isn't even helpful. In a former video, I go into a lot more detail on why our brains do this. And it should be linked up here right now, so if you haven't seen it, make sure that you go watch that. It goes into the why, but then it also talks a lot about mindfulness and why mindfulness is a really important first step in counteracting all of this. So before you try incorporating any of the tips from this video, make sure you go back to that other one and really take the steps, incorporate that mindfulness into your daily habit for a couple of weeks before you try to tackle any of these new additional steps. Those mindfulness tips are going to help you recognize when the negative self-talk comes up, and it's going to be really important that you can identify it and identify it early. Otherwise, it can really spiral out of control. All that being said, let's get into the 3 tips I've got for you today. Number 1, write a list of your non-code accomplishments. There are so many things that we have all thought at one point, I'll never be able to do that. That's going to be impossible forever. Think of at least 10 of them. I know that they exist. Remember back when you were learning to write your name and it seemed impossible that you were ever going to write your name in a way that didn't take up half the page? Another example I think a lot of people can relate to, remember when it was really hard to learn your multiplication tables? I sat at my kitchen counter with my mom trying to help me learn my multiplication, and I cried. I literally cried at the table and told her I wasn't going to be able to learn. That wasn't true. I now know how to multiply things, even big numbers. But there was a point in time when that was like the hardest thing that I would ever encounter. Tip number 2, keep a list of your technical accomplishments too. It's okay to keep that as a separate list because I would like you to keep adding to it every time you learn something new, which is probably going to be every day. The first time I ever had to use a loop, my brain almost melted. There are plenty of patterns that are hard to wrap your mind around. Did you implement a React hook for the first time? add it to the list. It might not be convenient to be adding to your list in the middle of your day, but take some time at the end of the day. Think through what were the things that you learned. Also be on the lookout for those conversations that you might have with a more senior developer when that senior developer says, "Oh, I didn't know that." Nobody knows everything. There's going to be a point in time, I promise you, if you stick with it, there's going to be a point in time when you trade some information that the other person didn't know, even if they have years and years of experience on you. The beauty of building this list is when you are having one of your tough days, when you are really feeling like a disappointment, you're going to be able to recognize it, right? That's why the mindfulness was important, to be able to recognize as it's creeping in, but then take out the lists, read them through, see if you can add anything more to the list. They're going to help you remember, no, I have been able to learn in the past, and this is a hard day, but I'm going to get through it. Tip number 3 is be on the lookout for some inspirational content. There are a lot of resources on YouTube that can inspire you. There are wonderful books that I can give you some recommendations on, documentaries, other movies online. Find something that reminds you the value of hard work and reminds you that the people who are most successful that we look up to are not people who have gotten it right immediately. They're the people who just don't give up. They keep going even when things are hard. And that's going to help you realize that this moment that, yeah, you don't feel your best. You feel like you've disappointed someone. You feel like maybe you're going to get fired and you're worried about that. Finding these resources to go back to that somebody else has put together, you're going to recognize that this is something that so many people go through. You're not alone. You just have to find some way to push through and keep getting better. Do you already have some favorite inspirational content that you go to? Link it down in the comment section below. You would be helping out everybody else who ends up watching this video after you. 3 examples that you might want to look into are the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and Grit by Angela Duckworth. All 3 of those books are great because they emphasize persistence over intelligence, and that's really what it comes down to. So again, it's really important to be able to recognize when negative thoughts start getting you down, because you're going to need to do something to interfere with those negative thoughts and stop them from pulling you down even further. That's when you take out the list and you read them through. You take out the book and you read a couple of pages. I got through so many upsetting days in the beginning of my career. I wasn't learning as fast as I wanted to learn. I wasn't solving the bugs as fast as I wanted to be solving them. But I would sit down at the end of the day and I would specifically read Mindset, and it just put everything in a different perspective. It helped me snap myself out of whatever funky mood I was starting to slip into. If you're already feeling down on yourself and you're not able to write those lists in a clear mind, try going out and taking a walk for a little bit. Listen to some happy music that puts you in a good mood. When you come back from that walk, you're going to be in a better mood. Your endorphins are probably going to be flowing a little bit better, and you might be able to add a couple of things that you hadn't thought of before. These tips sound simple, but I promise you they are not easy. It takes a lot to rewire the patterns that are etched into your brain. It is so important to be able to acknowledge the things that you have done, acknowledge the things that you have learned over time, instead of only focusing on where you want to be and how much farther you have to get there. You have to find ways to acknowledge yourself, otherwise you're not going to get where you want to be. You're going to just give up right where you are. That's all for today, folks. Hope it has been helpful, and I hope you are staying safe out there.